Hey everyone! In this video today, I am going to show you how to make this really cool Fishbone Chevron friendship bracelet. You might immediately be thinking this looks nothing like the Fishbone Chevron, but the knotting structure is almost exactly the same, except there's just an extra row of knotting, and I also couldn't think of a more clever name for it. So if you want to learn how to make this extremely easy bracelet, then keep on watching. So this specific pattern calls for 12 strings and 6 colors, which means you will need 2 strings for each of your 6 colors. You can do a sort of gradient if you want, or you can do a rainbow color order like I am doing here. This pattern does work up like a chevron, which means the sides are going to mirror, so from the outer edge to the center you will order your strings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And depending on how you look at the pattern, it only has about 2 to 3 steps, so it's a pretty easy one to work up. To start out, we want to make a chevron with our outermost left and right strands. So this is the very easy part. We have our sort of imaginary center line here. You want to take your outermost left strand and you want to do forward knots on all 5 of the rest of your strings to bring it to the middle. And if you're not doing a shape start or a teardrop loop or anything like that, it can be a little finicky to start out the first few rows of this bracelet. So while knotting this, I like to make my knots go into that chevron shape, because once you work on the rest of the bracelet, it just makes it a lot easier. And as long as you don't tie your knots too incredibly tight, you can just push the knots in the shape that you want them to be in if you need to do that. And then on the right side, we'll take our outermost right strand and do backward knots on the rest of the 5 strings to the left of it to bring it to the middle. You want to connect this chevron so you can make whichever knot you want, since these are the same color, but I am doing a forward knot. And now here is where we get into the more tedious part, but not too complicated after the first few tries. So I am going to keep my right pair of strings off to the side for now and just focus on the left. It'll just make things a lot easier with the back and forth that we have to do. So the forward backward and backward forward knots do look a little confusing when you are glancing at the pattern, but one thing you want to keep in mind is while you're doing these knots, you always want to pick up the string in the rainbow order. So you see here, I have this chevron pink, and then it goes orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So that's a good tip to sort of keep in mind while you're working this up, and hopefully gives you a lot less confusion. So on the left side, for the next row, we are doing forward backward knots with every color. So take your second colored strand, which will be on the outermost left side, and do a forward backward knot onto the string to the right of it. So you have half of a forward knot, and then half of a backward knot. So that is your forward backward knot, and it'll go back to where it was, And then with the string that you knotted onto, which should be your third color, that's going to be your next working strand. So you'll pick up the next strand in line to the right of it, and you'll do a forward backward knot onto that. So again, half of a forward knot, and then half of a backward knot, and then put that string back into its place, and then this strand that we knotted onto is going to be our working strand. Pick up the next string to the right, which will now be your fifth color, and do a forward backward knot onto it. And then put that off to the side. And the string that you knotted onto now becomes the working strand. Pick up the next strand to the right, which will be your sixth color, and do a forward backward knot onto it. And then one last time, take the strand that was previously the base strand, the one we knotted onto, and do a forward backward knot onto the last strand to the right of it, which will be your first color. And you see, because of that, our strings are still in the same place that they were. And then once you have that on the left side, you'll come to the right and repeat everything you just did, but this time it's going to be mirrored, since we are now technically looking at our color order in reverse. Take your outermost right strand, which will be your second color, and do a backward forward knot this time onto the next string to the left of it, which will be your third color. So we have half of a backward knot, and then half of a forward knot. And then once you have that, you'll take the working strand and put it off to the side, and then pick up the string that we knotted onto, and then we'll use that string to do a backward forward knot onto our next color to the left of it, which will be your fourth color. So again, backward forward knot. Take that string that you knotted with, put it off to the side, and you can see that I'm kind of holding on to it. Once I'm done making my knot, I put it over and I'm still holding on to this, and that just kind of helps me remember this will be my next string that I'm knotting with. So take that string and do a backward forward knot onto the next string to the left of it. Then put that off to the side. Newest working strand, pick up the next string to the left of it, and yet again do a backward forward knot. Put it off to the side. Now we have our base strand as our working strand, and finally do a backward forward knot onto the very last string to the left of it. And then we don't want to have any sort of gap in the center, so you'll take your two middle strands, which will be your first color, and you'll just tie a knot with them. And then we're going to come back yet again to the left side, where we will do our final row in the whole pattern. And in this third row, we are actually now going to do backward forward knots on all of these strings. We actually aren't going to start out with our outermost left strand, and instead we're going to pick up the second string from the left, which will be our third color, and do a backward forward knot onto the string to the left of it, which will be your second color. So now we are moving on to the next string in line, which is our fourth color. And you're going to do a backward forward knot onto the string to the left of it. And the knotting here can be a little bit tricky with all of these forward backward and backward forward knots. We just did a knot with that, and then we will move on to our next color, which will be our 5th color to the right of it. With that string, you'll do a backward forward knot onto the strand that we just knotted with. And then move on to your 6th color, which will be next to the strand that we previously knotted with, and do a backward forward knot onto the string, which will be to the left of it. And then finally on this side, you'll take the string that is to the right of it, which will be your 1st color, and again, do a backward forward knot onto the string to the left of it. We are done with that, so we can take all these strings and put them off to the side so that we can focus on our right side and do the last portion of the pattern. So again, we are doing what we did on the left, but we're mirroring it. So this time you will do forward backward knots with your strings. So take your 2nd strand from the right, which will be your 3rd color. We're skipping this 1st string here because we are doing a forward backward knot onto it. And then once you have that, pick up the next string in line, which will be your 4th color, and do a forward backward knot onto the strand that we previously knotted with, so your 3rd color. And then you'll pick up the next one in line, which will be your 5th color, and do a forward backward knot onto the string to the right of it. And then you'll go to your next color in line, which will be your 6th color, and again do a forward backward knot onto the previous strand, which will be on the right side. And then go to the next string in line, which will be your 1st color, and do a forward backward knot onto the string to the right of it. And then again, we don't want to leave any gaps in the center here, so take your middle 2 strands and just connect them with a knot. And that is the easiest way to follow this Fishbone Chevron bracelet right here if you aren't the most expert at bracelet making. You can go row by row with the chevrons and just kind of take your time a little bit. And if you are a bit more advanced and that's too slow for you, what I like to do is actually combine step 2 and 3 while I'm knotting the bracelet up, and it kind of just cuts that time down. So there are 2 ways that you can work up this bracelet depending on how comfortable you feel working it up. But when you start the pattern over, of course, you'll do your chevron first, and it'll be your 2nd color, and you just keep following those steps all the way until you work up your bracelet and you have this really awesome design. So I want to thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope to see you all in the next one.